The FBI arrests Antifa terrorist Benjamin Song after a major manhunt. Vice President J.D. Vance casts the tiebreaking vote to pass the DOGE cuts recision package out of the Senate. And a Rhode Island state representative describes the arrest of an MS-13 member and fentanyl trafficker an act of terror by the Nazi Gestapo. I'm Tony Kinnett, host of the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, syndicated nationally at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. After the FBI arrested 11 individuals connected with the Prairieland Detention Center shooting in Texas, in which Antifa and other far-left members coordinated to ambush Immigration Customs Enforcement officers, Benjamin Song, one of the ringleaders of the crew who hid out in a local woods and tried to escape, has been arrested by the Federal Bureau of Investigation yesterday evening. From Special Agent in Charge Joseph Rothrook, quote, "The FBI has worked tirelessly to arrest everyone associated with the shooting at the Prairieland Detention Center. We would like to thank all entities that publicized this case and assisted in our efforts to successfully locate Benjamin Song. His arrest is the result of our determination to protect not only the community, but also our law enforcement partners that were the targets of a coordinated attack. We have said it before, the FBI will not tolerate acts of violence towards law enforcement and will thoroughly investigate anyone that commits these types of offenses." One of the individuals running point on spreading this manhunt far and wide in order to make sure this individual was captured was Andy No of the Post Millennial, who we sat down with the day before to talk about this individual, the crimes he's committed, and his connection with Antifa in training up new terror cells. Check it out.
So in the last 2 weeks, there's been a number of really violent shootings targeting immigration officials in the state of Texas. Some of you may have heard about how a gunman was shot dead in McAllen, Texas, which is right by the border with Mexico. It was a border patrol station that was shot up, and a Latino American gunman was shot dead. Nobody else was injured in that shooting. But people didn't know that a few days before that, on the 4th of July, there was and this is according to the DOJ in the Northern District of Texas, a ambush shooting in Alvarado, Texas, which is close to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And around a dozen masked militants in black who were heavily armed with body armor and multiple firearms, semi-auto rifles and pistols, allegedly lured the agents and staff inside the ICE facility to come out and fired upon them. All Alvarado police responded. A local police officer was shot in the neck. He survived, fortunately, and has been released from hospital. So there were 7 individuals who were arrested that night. They tried escaping on foot, and they were caught nearby. Some were then caught. The remaining 3 were caught in the next 3 days. And there's been a 11th person part of this North Texas Antifa cell. And I feel comfortable calling them Antifa because if you look at the criminal complaint from the DOJ, it has pictures of the political propaganda that was found on the body of at least one of the militant suspects. And then also in a follow-up investigation, when they arrested another person in the investigation, a whole box of this political propaganda. And these are the pamphlets and booklets that are really core to the ideology of Antifa. And the messaging also talks about fighting fascism, so-called fascism, as they understand it. And these attacks have taken place in the context of escalating incitement to violence against immigration officials. A lot of that incitement, unfortunately, is coming from elected officials in the Democrat Party. And then there are Antifa and far-left extremists who are more explicitly calling for murder and death. So Benjamin Song is a at-large suspect who's been charged in this shooting. And according to the DOJ, he was there on the scene. Several of the firearms used allegedly or possessed by the other militants are registered to him. According to where his mobile phone had been pinging, he was in the proximity there for an entire day. So it is suspected that he hid out in the wooded area whilst his comrades were being arrested. And then within a day or so, once it was safe for him, he fled on foot, and he's been missing since then. The entire state of Texas sent out this alert that went on all mobile phones FBI wanted suspect. Benjamin Song is now in Texas top 10 most wanted suspect. Authorities have not said anything about where he's even been spotted. There was an alert that came out a few days ago in Oklahoma, so he may have left the state of Texas. But this is a likely armed and dangerous person, according to the FBI. The video that I discovered from his social media showed that he had a long history of providing militancy training, firearms trainings to others.
We'll link the rest of that interview in the description. Vice President J.D. Vance cast the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate, passing President Donald Trump's recisions package late yesterday evening. The Senate voted 51-50 with 3 Republican senators, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, joining the Democrats to block the president's $9 billion clawback funding request. This rescissions package was up against a July 18th deadline to steer the package through the upper chamber. And the Republicans in the majority had worked to cut back some of the rescissions in order to work with Susan Collins of Maine to gain her vote. For example, exempting a proposed $400 million cut to global AIDS relief. However, Collins ended up voting against the package even after gaining the concession in the AIDS relief. This package now goes back to the House, who had passed the $9.4 billion rescission package and sent it to the Senate earlier with a vote of 214 to 212. Given that this is slightly more moderate, it's expected that this will pass just the same. And Congress has until Friday to get this thing through. Otherwise, the Trump administration will have to spend the allotted $9 billion. These cuts include removing federal funding from PBS and NPR, who have not only previously used American taxpayer funding in order to push particular political narratives, but also to push shoddy and false reporting and castigate entire swaths of the American people in a certain political light, not something that taxpayer-funded programming was intended for. This didn't stop House Democrat Jasmine Crockett from suggesting that Sesame Street, which she appears to allege appears on NPR, is part of a global effort to de-radicalize people in the Middle East. Check it out.
When you start to talk about whether or not Sesame Street or anything else that's on NPR or PBS ends up in other places, this is so that there is not this warped thought process about the Western world or about the United States. We're talking about making sure that we don't end up allowing people to be radicalized against us because they have a terrible vision of us, because they may be in a government that actually puts out bad, terrible propaganda about us.
And lastly, State Representative Enrique Sanchez of Rhode Island, a Democrat, alleged to NBC 10, the local media affiliate, that his neighbor in Providence was kidnapped by Nazi Gestapo ICE thugs. Check it out.
Politicians.
These actions that ICE officials and other federal agents are committing in our city, in our states, are horrifying.
Providence police say ICE detained Mendoza after chasing the vehicle he was in to this home on Alverson Avenue. Representative Enrique Sanchez arrived at the end of the scene and posted this on X, saying, quote, "The Nazi Gestapo ICE thugs kidnapped another of our neighbor in Providence this morning."
They're operating just as if Nazi thugs and Gestapo officials were conducting back in the 40s during World War II. They are apprehending people illegally. They're not identifying themselves. They're taking them to centers, to detention centers, to camps where people are are living in inhumane conditions.
ICE
trafficking, right? But in the meantime, I can't not stay quiet about this, and I don't hold back my words around how I label the ICE officials. If you choose to not believe history or watch history or see or read history, then that's your problem, But when you do compare and contrasting of the situations in the 40s to what we're dealing with now, it's the same thing.
Sanchez says everyone deserves their legal due process before it's decided they'll be deported. In Providence, Temi Talkbadalaya, NBC 10 News.
Now, here's the issue. The individual that Representative Sanchez is complaining about being arrested is Ivan Rene Mendoza Meza, a previously deported illegal alien, self-admitted MS-13 gang member with a criminal history which includes fentanyl trafficking charges. Nothing says good old neighbor of Providence, Rhode Island like a little fentanyl trafficking and Central American gang membership. Before you go, head down to the description and make sure you're subscribed to the Tony Kinnett Cast. And join us at 7 p.m. Eastern every weekday where we take a look at the day's news and nonsense. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Top News in 10. Take care.